Welcome to the Call Dad podcast with your host, Call Dad CEO and visionary Matt Posda, and featuring special guest, Charleston service tech Kurt Godfrey-Evans.
Welcome back to another fun episode of Fostering Communication. Today we've got in the studio, now help me with it, Kurt Godfrey-Evans?
That's the one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you say it?
It's Kurt Godfrey and then hyphen
Evans.
Yeah.
Oh, so you pronounce the hyphen? You actually say hyphen?
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
It's an English thing.
It's an English. Well, I'm glad you got the elephant in the room out there with regard to the English thing.
Yeah.
All right, so what we typically do on these things, we'll give you a quick introduction. Obviously, currently service tech out of Charleston.
Mm-hmm.
You can go as far back as you want to go. I completely defer to you on how much you want to share.
Yeah.
But let's kick it off with, how did you get into HVAC?
Okay, so I came to the US actually visiting a little ways back, but I came to visit some old US Navy guys that I met when I was on tour. And whilst I was here for just over a month in Charleston, I met my now current wife, and we spoke quite frequently. Obviously, we hung out for the last week I was here.
So this was what year?
2019.
In 2019. Okay.
Yeah.
And then you started a long distance relationship?
We did, and funny enough, actually, the week that I went back is when the COVID hit.
Yeah.
And then they banned all flights.
Yeah.
So for the
It was
first...
very fitting for long distance relationships.
So it's hard enough, exactly, with the distance, but for the first 2 years, we saw each other 6 days.
Yeah.
So, that was hard. A lot of challenges, because the only thing we could do was sort of FaceTime call or anything, or Skype call. So
how often were you guys talking?
every night.
Yeah.
Yeah, every night. But because of the time difference, I would stay up till like midnight till like 4 a.m. just so we could talk. Yeah. And then go to sleep for a couple hours. And then
you were out of the military at this point?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what were you doing for work?
So I was just, honestly, I didn't really have anything that I was kind of driven in or, focused on. I was just kind of pottering around.
Yeah.
I was doing a lot of bar work. Like I was managing an events bar, and then I was also managing a gin bar as well at the same time. So I was doing a lot of hours, but I wasn't doing anything that was, in my eyes, I would see beneficial to most of the public other than obviously your local drinkers.
Yeah. So you, again, from the little bit that I know about you, you have always seemed like a very driven person to me, or very purpose driven.
Mm-hmm.
The things that you research, the depth that you go into, we'll get into some of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it seems like you've always been a driven person. Were you a driven person then, or is this kind of after meeting your wife, you became a more driven person?
I was always driven because I joined the army, at 16. But I think there's a difference when you're a kid of being driven and kind of having a lot of misplaced energy in certain things, and you're kind of maybe putting effort into areas that you don't need to put as much effort in there, and maybe work on other areas. And I think I had a lot of that, and I think, without sounding too corny, a lot of my success is through my wife. She's very, very driven. She's very switched on at all times. She's very focused, and having that behind you all the time, a partner that's there going to help you in every aspect, not just in work but in life and everything. That helped me to become more driven, and then seeing her succeed made me want to succeed.
Yeah, that's very cool. All right, so 16, is that norm? Like in Britain, you can join when you're 16, or did your parents have to sign up?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Parental
So
consent.
same as US, so you just have to have parent consent.
Yes.
Okay.
But no, I wasn't really doing much before that.
Did somebody tell you go get in the military, or that was something you always wanted to do?
No, it was very much on a whim. I didn't go to college.
You just walk by a recruiting station and were like, hey, let me go check this out.
Yeah. I didn't go to college. I was a very mischievous young boy. I got into a lot of trouble, very misguided, not a very good upbringing, and I wanted to get away from that upbringing.
Yeah.
So I thought, how can I do something that's going to benefit me and get away from the scenarios that I'm in, with the people that I didn't want to be around anymore. So that's why I joined the military, and The first year was really rough, and the old adage of like they break you and then they build you back up is very, very true.
So you were one that had to be broken?
100%. Yeah. I held on as long as I could.
You were one of the last to be broken.
Maybe fourth, fifth to last.
Yeah. The wild horse that the entire herd had been captured.
Yeah, I mean, you got those unique people in there that take a lot a lot to break. Yeah. I did take a lot, but not as some, not as little as others.
Yeah.
But then it matured me very quickly.
Was there one specific person that helped you through that maturity, or was it just again death by 1,000 cuts? Or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, pretty much. It was weird to be that young and have such responsibility over things that are life changing, like weaponry and things like that, and to be given that at 16 and taught that type of thing,
Yeah.
I mean, not so much in the US, especially Southern people like that type of thing, but
what are you talking about, Southerners?
Well, grabbing alligators and diving in water with them. People are crazy down there. But no, I mean, it's it's a big responsibility, and I think it's good for a lot of kids that are misguided to do something like that.
I think there's a lot of great stories that come out of those individuals trying to escape and using the military as a means to do so. I think a lot of people are misguided in terms of realizing that it is an opportunity. It's not sometimes what you see or what you picture, but you can use it as a means to an end to really change yourself. But most importantly is change your environment, right?
Yes.
We talk so much here about culture, right? And what is culture? And culture is an environment, right?
Yeah.
And you can have different environments based on different companies, but forcing yourself into some sort of regimented environment like that is pretty cool. And being able to see that at a young age is pretty cool too.
Yeah, I think I saw it because I didn't have much choice.
Yeah.
It was kind of fight or flight.
Yeah.
So it kind of had to get done. Otherwise, I wasn't going to go anywhere.
But sometimes, I think people, I can't remember where I heard this talk about, but it's like you get stuck. Like there's a perfect, unfortunately, like a Goldilocks zone of maybe like where you're uncomfortable, but you're not uncomfortable enough that you're willing to change, right? So sometimes worse situations are better because it pushes you out of your unwillingness to change into a world that you are like, okay, I'm going to finally do something about this. So many people are in that world of complacency where they don't change because it's not uncomfortable enough.
Yes.
And it sounds like what you're saying is you were at that point where you had to make a decision.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. So back to your American girlfriend.
Yeah.
Okay. So you came over for a month, met her. You're dating long distance for 2 years. Had you started having conversations about somebody jumping over the pond one way or the other?
Yeah. I wanted to come to the US. She wanted to come to England. Inevitably, I had the final say. Mainly, it wasn't very much like I'm moving to the US because I say so type thing.
Yeah.
It was more, I'm not as close to my family, whereas she's very close to hers.
Yeah.
So, and very close to her friends.
And her parents are in Charleston, right?
They are now.
Yeah.
Yes. They
moved recently, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, about 2 months ago.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
But they are all from Boston, Revere originally. So we decided that I was going to make the move over here. And it was a very quick decision. And the decision was made pretty much in about a week. And when the COVID kind of died down a little bit and you could start to fly again, I had to leave England for 14 days before I could enter the US. So I had to fly from England to Croatia, spend 15 days there. Then I had to fly from Croatia to Istanbul all the way over to the US.
What? Why couldn't you?
There was like COVID guidelines that were based in something called the Schengen zone, where it's a list of countries that weren't like having as strict rules or counted as you not being in an area where it was, I guess, COVID was so much of a threat. So you had to fly out of that and basically stay out of that zone for 15 days to see if you didn't have symptoms and negative tests for 15 days.
So the UK was considered high threat, so you could not fly directly from the UK to the US?
No, but it was really funny because my wife came over.
When was this? Like 21?
Yeah. My wife flew from US to UK, and she was allowed to fly back.
Because she had a passport.
Yeah, but even during the time, but I couldn't fly back with her. So we both went to Croatia, spent 15 days there, then flew from Split to Zagreb to Istanbul to Boston.
So this is bureaucracy at its finest.
Yeah. And then...
we're protecting from anybody coming from this region, unless...
Yes, unless they're from the US themselves.
Yeah.
So
then whatever.
It was tough, but we did it. It's all done. You know, it took a long process, and we got married very quickly, and soon after we had kids very quickly.
So how long after you got here did you get married?
3 months.
Okay. Wow. Were you engaged before that?
When she visited in England, I proposed to her in Trafalgar Square.
Okay, so this is one of the 6 days that you spent together.
Yeah.
Yeah. No kidding. That is awesome.
And then we.
What did her parents think of the whole thing?
I called her parents.
Did you ask for
6 months
permission
beforehand?
Yeah. Okay.
And they obviously they're very successful and they're very well-driven people.
Yeah.
So I very much had to outline my plan of what I wanted to do, where I wanted to be in 10 to 15 years.
Yeah.
The dad wanted the whole plan, so he wanted to know what my finances were, how much I had, how much I didn't have, and basically the whole outline of what I was going to do over the next 15 years of my life.
All right. So did you know that he was going to ask you these questions before? So you're on the phone. Did you have a plan at the time?
I just wanted to talk to them, and then I called them several times before because I just wanted to speak to them because obviously there was no way I was going to meet them in person first. So I called them, I would say about 6 or 7 times before we had that conversation.
Yeah.
So they knew, a lot about me, and obviously their daughter's probably spoken about me to them anyway.
Yeah.
But
was there set expectations? Like the dad was like, hey, if you're dating my daughter, I expect you to have some planning in place for what you're going to do in the future. Or you just the day you asked that question, he was like, okay, well, before you have my permission, I need to see your...
Exactly that.
So did you have an answer then, or you had to go back and prepare the plan?
No, I had an answer because I know where I want to be, just in general in life. Yeah. I said to him, look, my goal is to, if I'm going to move to the US, it's not to move and do nothing.
Yeah.
I'm going to find something that I can have a career in that is beneficial for me, for her, and if we have kids, I have money, I have this, I have the ability to support myself and support your daughter.
Yeah.
But, I don't have an endless pool of money, and for the first year that I was here in the US, I couldn't work.
Yeah.
So a lot of that money did dissipate very quickly because I got nothing to do for the whole year.
It was because you didn't have a work visa?
It wasn't allowed.
Yeah.
I had to stay here for 90 days on my ESTA, which is the travel visa.
Yeah.
And I'm meant to go back after that. If I overstay in my ESTA, they can deport me basically. But I spoke to my attorney and he said to file for permanent residence, I have to overstay my ESTA 10 days. So I have to stay here illegally for 10 days to file a legal form asking me to...
So during the 10 days were you
on edge,
looking out for ice trucks showing up?
Exactly. So, and then we did that once
there
it was filed.
Get him.
Exactly, I was a little bit terrified, especially when you see immigration trucks and stuff,
Do you see immigration trucks? I've never seen an immigration truck. I guess I've never been in the country illegally, so I'm not out looking for immigration.
I saw loads of them. It's like one of those,
It's like you never see a red car.
Exactly.
Yeah, until you look for red cars, and then all of a sudden it's all red cars.
Yeah, so every time my wife was driving, I was stay the freaking speed limit. But it worked out. That
looks like an illegal immigrant in the passenger seat.
Yeah, for 10 days.
Yeah. So what you're saying though is that through all of this, you had to formulate a plan so you were ready to communicate to him.
Exactly.
Gosh, I don't know what type of dad I would be when somebody asked my daughter, because so my father-in-law was the complete opposite. Mm-hmm. It was he made a joke out of it. He was like, I don't know, will you take a goat and 2 chickens? Like that was his response. Is that good enough? And I was like, you throw in a pig and we've got a deal. He still has not given me the goat, chickens, or pig. Yeah. But no, it wasn't that. So like I hear that and it's like, all right, what would I do for my daughter? How would I respond? And I don't know if there's a right answer, but that's definitely interesting that he put you through those paces.
I think it was more to just maybe test my resolve, maybe more than anything. Yeah. But then again, they're all Italian, so they are quite family orientated and very
Boston
fiery.
Italians, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, take it on the chin, take it with a pinch of salt. At the end of the day, it's his daughter.
Yeah.
And I just got to respect that and respect, that all he's trying to do is look after her. So.
Yeah, which is, I mean, again, the right thing to do, right? And what you're, like, we were talking about the gym before, that, like, what you're now trying to prepare your future for your kids and all that. So, yeah, it makes sense. I'm with them. You get married after 3 months. Then I guess after you get married, that's the same 90-day window that you're an illegal. And then you've got to wait another 9 months.
So I had to wait. I got my permanent resident card, and then obviously I had to wait for a few things. It's quite a complicated process. Yeah. A lot of it went through the attorney just because some forms that you have to fill out kind of counteract other forms that you have to fill out. So if you don't fill them out correctly, you're kind of like voiding all of them.
Yeah.
So I had to pay an attorney, which was about $8,000, which was a lot of money, and that was basically just filing for my permanent residence, the ability to transfer my license, and then my wife, because I wasn't allowed to work the first year, had to sign off on being like a guarantor.
Yeah.
For someone that's not going to be working, whether her income could support me for a year. Even though I had my own money, it had to be based due to tax reasons, you know. And basically we got through that process, and once my permanent resident card came in, which is, I've got it right now, I have to wait 5 years before I can apply for citizenship. So, I mean, it's an expensive trip for sure. I think in costs now, just through attorneys and visas and licenses and everything that we've needed to pay, I mean, we're upwards of sort of 18, 19 grand.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, just to get over the pond.
Yeah, but that's the way you got to do it legally. So, I've got to respect, I've got to respect the rules. I'm coming from England to the US, and they're accepting me, and admittedly, I don't think the process is the smoothest or done the right way, but I'm not going to do it illegally. So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, the bureaucracy of all of that is, I don't know if you've ever talked to Todd about bureaucracy, but he and I have gotten into some, especially like on the adoption side of things, like there's just so much bureaucracy and everything. Anyway, that's a whole nother world. What did you do when you were finally able to work?
So my first job that I applied for was...
no kidding.
Yeah.
What a great company to apply to.
Right?
So how'd you find it? How'd you pick it? What?
My wife, actually, we had this conversation probably about a couple of weeks before I started applying. It was like what I wanted to do, what type of job I wanted to do. Was it like an office job and personally for me, every single job that I've done has been on my feet.
Yeah.
And interacting with people, which, doing that I've been quite good at through the years. So I thought, what is something that I can do that is, if I ever want to build houses or do anything in the future, I can have a hand in it, then it would be, AC work, electrical work, plumbing work. So eventually I want to have it where I can do all of it.
Yeah.
So, when it comes down to eventually building my own home, I can do that all myself, or at least have eyes on it, and then, see the value in doing it.
Yeah.
And I think it's a job that is always growing. That's another thing I wanted. Always growing, always bigger career opportunities. If you grow, the company grows type thing. I applied to here, which at the time was Sky, obviously. And then I applied to a few electrical companies and plumbing companies, but I liked the DADU program. That's what I read about first. And that's what intrigued me the most. And my wife and I spoke about it, and the stepping stones of, where we start to where I'm going to finish at the end. I like a regimented, structured way of doing things. I guess that's the military. So as long as everything's structured, or if I know where I'm heading, or if I know the goals I've got to hit, what do I need to do to make you guys happier in me, or help the branch do better, anything structured's really good. So I found this was probably the most structured place that I applied to.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and it was still Sky when you did it, and then you've been through. We could spend hours talking about all the change and ebbs and flows and ups and downs and everything that you've been through with Charleston. But you've obviously seen a lot and been through a lot. Yeah. You and I have had a lot of conversations over the years with regard to things that we can do to improve, which I hope you've seen that we've worked on. And I've said this to you privately. I'll say it publicly as well, but I appreciate you giving us the opportunity, because it's hard to see, especially when you're very early in a program at a small location, what it's like and what you go through on a day-to-day basis, but seem at least believing in what we're trying to do and what we're trying to accomplish and how we're trying to get there and all of that. You've given us some latitude, and I appreciate you for that. And you've come, not that you were behind the ball or anything like that, but you've come such a long way, and just unbelievably appreciative to have you on the team. So thank you for giving us the latitude to be able to create the program.
It's a give and take, so we had some rough spots, but some of that is going to be no fault of my own, so like sometimes I think with what was going on with Charleston, it kind of clouds your vision a little bit, and then you get into kind of a negative mindset because everybody's in a negative mindset.
Correct, the environment conversation that we were talking about, right?
So, once that was separated and we had individual talks and we broke things down, which like in reality, most companies aren't going to do that. And one thing I really, really respect about this company is that I don't know any other company the owner's going to come down and sit with each branch and actually have a discussion and be fully open to ideas and sit there and actually take those ideas on board and then bring it back to everybody. And, I'm not saying the changes have to happen like this, but you can see that since we had that talk where the branch was in a tough spot, there's been dramatic changes, and changes that I think that makes the ability for that branch to do a lot better, and it shows. It's doing way better now. We've got better people in that branch. We have people that are of similar mind, similar body, that they want to do the same thing, which is just going to help tenfold, and that's just going to help even more with the goals that you want to reach as well as the ones that I want to reach.
Well, you're an integral part of that, so thank you for being part of that team, this team. You're on board, all that type of stuff. We roll out Call Dad, we roll out PDPs, which is going to start getting us down one of the main things I want to talk to you about. But on the PDP thing, we roll this out. The first you hear about it, what's your perspective? What are they trying to do to me now?
I think, honestly, the first meeting we had about it, I didn't really kind of understand what the purpose was in a sense of longevity. Like I could understand it from a short term. It's nice to see that you have people not only working with you in your job, but also trying to work with you to achieve your goals outside of your job, which I really like.
Let's talk about, to the extent you're willing to share, your goals for outside the job, right? One thing, and most of this is around finances and trying to be financially independent and all that. I'm going to be open and honest here. One thing that drives me bananas is how many people bring up through PDPs how they want to get financially educated. Okay, it's a very, very common thing that people talk about it. So Todd, right, put a lot of effort and energy to working with our banking partner to create a financial education program where it was a multi-part series. They were focused on different topics and all these things, but nobody showed up. Like nobody actually logged in or did anything with it. So my point is we all want to be financially astute. But not many of us are willing to do the work or put in the effort or energy to actually be financially independent. It's easy to say, hey, I want to be financially independent. I've got kids. I want to be secure. I want to provide them a future. You were talking before we started about sending your kids to private school, like all these different things that we want to accomplish. But then you get into the day-to-day grind and no one actually focuses or spend time on it. You seem to be a very driven person, and it seems like almost every time I'm talking to you, you're bringing up a different book that you're reading about some level of financial, like personal financial education. Yeah. When did you, was it, because it sounds like even before the military, like you were saving money. Have you always been that way? Yeah. What put that in you? How did you get it? And then what are some of the tools that you use?
I think...
Because there's got to be a way, sorry, I just want to preface why this is so important. Clearly just putting together, a webinar on how to save money is not the best. So what advice would you give to people through what you're about to explain to me that would help other people learn?
I lived in a very poor family. I'm not rich by any means or anything like that. I'm not poor, but I would say that from seeing where my family was, and seeing, for example, what my uncle and auntie were doing, which is my auntie's a surgeon, my uncle's a professor at a medical university. Yeah. And then on the other hand of that, my dad does window cleaning and my mum cleans houses. Yeah. Which is, there's nothing wrong with that. Yeah. And if that's very life fulfilling for you and that's enough for you, that's fine. Yeah. But I'm never going to be a doctor. That's fine. Yeah. But there's, for me...
But you're not going to be a window cleaner.
But I don't want to be a window cleaner. Yeah. So, it sounds silly, but when I was 16, I wrote a list down of 50 things that I wanted before I die. Yeah. And that was something simple as skydive or...
Yeah, so like bucket list type things.
Yeah. Yeah. And so far, I've ticked off like 40 of them.
No kidding.
So, the last 10 are pretty big ones. Yeah. So, they're going to be way down the line, but... Now I can add more, and they don't have to, for me, they didn't always have to be big goals. They could be really, really small goals. Yeah. But at the end of the day, like, I have a lot of people that I know that I want to do this and I want to have this and I want to have this. And it's always great to, like, talk about it because in a sense, the more you talk about it, the more you're manifesting it. And I'm very big on manifestation. But if I just, every time I say I'm going to do something and then I don't do it, you're taking like 5 steps back. Yeah. And then what you just I find a lot of people that just talk about it and never do anything, just regress. And then they get further and further in themselves and start doing something, which is what a lot of people do, I find, which I used to do myself, which was, I didn't get here because of this. I didn't do it because I didn't have the time. I didn't do it because of all these other things, and they put so much energy into saying these things aren't happening because of this, when in reality most of the time it's not happening because you're not doing it.
Yeah. So you're in that complacent zone that we were talking about earlier. Do you think the list was the driving force for you then to break out of that complacency?
I think so, a little bit. It's also a reality of just being honest with yourself about it, which I did through some therapy. Yeah. I did through I think an accumulation of my life. I just realized that if I wanted it, I just had to go for it.
Yeah. The only person that's going to help you is yourself.
No, even I love my wife and I love my family, but even those people, they're not going to help me. Yeah. They're going to talk to me and they're going to go, you can do it. Yeah. But in reality, it's still me that has to do it. Yeah. So, realizing that you're alone in it is kind of a good thing. Yeah. You're all alone in it. You're the one that has to do it. You're the one that has to get up and do it. Yeah. And, I think sometimes that can be quite fearful for people.
And also realizing that it's not instant gratification.
No.
Like, becoming financially independent is by no means, it's probably one of the longest things outside of, like, just general health, right? Mm-hmm. One of the hardest things to achieve. Yeah. Because there's so much that goes into it.
It's boring. Yeah. It's really methodical. Yeah. You have to be incredibly boring. Yeah. Most of my friends we're going out less. No, I can't. Yeah. I have my money that I spend a month. I have my money that I put away. Yeah. I don't go over it. I don't go I don't go under. It is what it is, and if I lose friends with it or anything like that, for me it was like, so be it.
Did your wife know you were this way? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And she's on board. She's a budgeter as well?
Not so much.
Yeah. See, that's why, like, my wife is not, like, I could give her 1 million Excel sheets and she'll just explode it. Like, and she'll be like, I don't know what happened.
She's getting better. She's way better at it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she's really good at typing all the Excel sheets out, breaking every payment down that we have. And, that doesn't mean I'm perfect at it.
Yeah.
By all means, I'm not.
Yeah.
We're both more consistent at doing it than we're not. So, that doesn't mean you can't fail sometimes.
Yeah.
But if you're more consistent than you're not, you're on a good path.
Yeah. So what's your goal? What are you trying to accomplish? And then what did you pick as avenues to be able to accomplish that?
First things first, I wanted to get like the bare minimum. So I wanted to understand what is the most money that I can get back from my taxes every year.
Yeah.
So it would be what can I write off? How can I get more money back? What do my kids?
So here's why you moved to America, to be a tax evader. So
no,
you're
because
American.
it's illegal.
You're as American as any of us.
It's all legal.
And you married somebody from Boston who's throwing tea into you are American. Everybody heard it here first.
I'm trying.
Yeah, you came to the right place to evade taxes.
I'm not evading. I pay my way. I would like.
We weren't evading either.
I like loopholes.
All right, so you started looking at strategies. Okay, what can I do?
So it's like just reading tax code.
Yeah.
In different areas.
Yeah.
It's incredibly boring.
Yeah.
It's not fun. I don't enjoy it. But what I enjoy is getting more money back at the end of the day. So, that's something that I'm doing. I'm still doing. That thing is like 30,000 pages long. So, some parts of it are not relevant to me yet.
Yeah.
A lot of it isn't. But, the more I can read it and understand it, the easier it's going to be.
Yeah. We do that in this business all the time. It's like, look at some other businesses that, again, don't necessarily want to emulate, but want to understand what they're doing or how they're handling problems that we don't even have yet.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you don't put in the effort or energy to plan ahead, what are you going to do when you get there? You're just stuck in a reactionary basis,
exactly.
right? And the likelihood that you're going to get there if you're not preparing or putting effort and energy towards it is even lower from a likelihood standpoint.
100%.
So it's cool that you're willing to put in that effort and energy. And then from a saving perspective, was it initially like you just want to save everything you can, or was it you wanted to put money to work? What was your philosophy there?
I saved.
Yeah.
I basically just didn't do anything for like 5 years.
Yeah.
And then after that, we had my townhouse with my wife. Now we have another house.
Yeah.
There's other things that we have as well. I won't go into too much detail because it's just blows my brain up sometimes. But it took a while. It wasn't easy. I am always paying out money.
Yeah.
It is not like just because I own quite a bit doesn't mean that I'm rich, because right now I'm still in that phase of this is more of a cost than it is a payback right now.
Yeah.
So, and if you can, bite the nail and just stick it through and really focus on it, then like in 20 years time, it's going to pay back. And I am someone that does not and will not work past 60. It's not happening.
Yeah.
And there's no way that I'm going to do. I don't want to work past 55 if I can.
Yeah.
So if that means I have to do A, B, C all the way to, Z, I'm going to do that.
Yeah. So look, to me it sounds like, all right, so that's kind of the goal, or one of the main goals that will probably help fulfill some of the other items on your list, right? Is I want to be done working by 55. So to have that kind of stone or kind of North Star in place gives you the ability to work through things that puts you in that position, which unfortunately, you kind of said this, is making tough decisions where most people will want to save money to enjoy it. You're saving money to spend it on putting things in place to create more money, but it's not overnight. It doesn't happen quick. And a lot of the things from, like, you mentioned real estate, right? A lot of those things don't bear fruit for a very long time.
Yeah, most of the time you don't make profit for the first 3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's a misconception. People think that we've got another house, that means we're going to have a ton of money come in. It's like, nope, because you'll have roof problems with that house too. Correct. You're going to have AC problems with that house too.
Correct.
Why I'm kind of want to be where I'm at so I can do it myself.
Yeah.
And then, more properties you have, well, guess what? Now you've got all those problems across all of them.
Yeah.
And then you've got tenant
money,
problems.
More problems.
Exactly. Then you have, finding tenants, and then some tenants are a pain, and then you potentially have problems with them. And then, so yes, in the long run, it's a really good thing, but we're talking 20 years.
Yeah. Yeah. If I'm a tech, right, and I say that I want to get more financially astute or start to get more financially independent, what are some things that you would do or you would recommend to another tech who's in that situation?
Get better at your trade, in the sense of the more information you know, the more believable you're going to be to a customer in what you're saying, and you'll believe in what you're saying. And then you will do more repairs. You will flip more leads. You're going to get more money on your ticket. You get more Google reviews. All of those things are like the small little bucket list things that you need to get sorted. And once then you're going to start making more money. Then you have more money, and if you can deal with what you're making now and you're not doing those things, then all that extra is extra you could be saving. It doesn't mean that, now I make more money, now I can spend more money. It's now I make more money, now I save more money. And if you keep putting it off, you're never going to get there. You will never get there.
It's such an interesting dichotomy, right? Because a lot of people will focus on, again, the end rather than the means, right? So they focus on what they're trying to accomplish, and that's what. All right. So, have you had your PDP yet for this go around? Next month. Yeah. Okay. So what Todd has now worked to put in place is actually an Excel function where, like, let's say that you set some saving goal that you want, right? You can now use it almost as a budgetary tool, where you can put in various metrics to see what earning potential is based on what you're doing, right? How many calls you're running, how you're performing on those calls, all those sort of things. So you can start to budget what you need to do to get to where you want to be. And I think you said that well, in the sense of most people always focus on what they want. They don't focus on the path of how you get to what you want.
Exactly.
Yeah. So putting the effort on the day-to-day in place is critical.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's with everything. I mean, you probably know a lot of Bill Gates' quotes, but the one that I like that resonates with me is people overestimate what they can do in a year and underestimate what they can do in 10.
Yeah.
And I think that for me is like every time I'm thinking about something or like, I don't want to do this, it's like just, focus. And I've really put that into work as of this year. And for me, so far, up to this point, I'm doing 100 times better than I was doing last year. And, that's my goal, is to do that for the whole year. So, that's just going to help me. That's going to help you guys. And, it's going to look all pretty up there on the board of the numbers. So,
I mean, I'll say, like, it sucks. Like, the marathon aspect of that sucks.
Yes.
It really does. But we talk about this, and I push this to leaders and individuals all the time. It's like snapshots in time, right? Like, just think about where you were as a tech, when you first got to the field, to where you are today.
Yeah.
Think about where you were 6 months ago to where you are today. And it's like, there was a point, when I bought Sky out of the gate, it was sub $1 million in 2016. Now, again, it's not an overnight thing. You got to put in the grind, but it's so much in life, we're waiting for those moments of gratification. Like, we expect we put in work today and we're going to see some sort of change tomorrow. And it's like, no, you got to put in the same work day in and day out into perpetuity. I don't know. I'm glad that you have that perspective. I wish there was a way to communicate that drive into individuals from a saving perspective, and an investment perspective, all those various things. I think it starts with the basics a lot of times.
Yes,
like
I agree.
401k, some of the more basic things.
I even think it starts way before that.
Yeah.
For me, I think it even starts with, instead of going like this with your alarm, get up.
Yeah.
That's where it starts for me. Is like the moment your alarm goes off, you shouldn't snooze it. If you snooze it, day's over already.
What are the odds of that? Did that go off right when he said alarm? Like, and then like an alarm went off?
Spam call.
It's telepathy. It was on purpose.
I didn't hit snooze though.
All right, so we just had 22 individuals come out of CDU 7. CDU 8 is about to start next week. I think there's going to be over 30 people in that class. Awesome. So this will come out post them being on board. What would be your biggest piece of advice? This doesn't have to be financial. It doesn't have to be work. Whatever you want to say. What would be your biggest piece of advice as somebody who's gone through the program to those individuals who are coming on board now?
Make your goals known to the company. Tell them areas you want work on. Tell them where you want to go, what your goals are, where you feel like you need the most improvement. If you need help with anything, ask the techs. If there's a tech out there that isn't willing to help you, then he ain't it. So, I'm always there. If anybody ever wants to call me, because I still am learning.
Yeah.
But from when I started, I think the program's done me really good, and I think Adam is really turned like a wheel since we spoke about it. He's been really, really good. He's just been so good.
Yeah.
All the management's been really good. Hats off to you for doing how successful it's becoming. I want you to reach your 250.
Yeah.
So if I have to help the new guys, or be an avenue for them, please reach out. We're all here to help each other. So just go in with 110% effort and you'll get 110% back.
Yeah. It's just that little additional bit of effort makes such a difference.
It does.
It really does. But yeah, it's crazy. I mean, when you came out of the program, it was probably, I don't know, a fraction of a percent. Probably, I mean, it was definitely less than 10% of the total company was from Dad U.
Yeah.
Now, with this next class coming out, I mean, it's going to be well into the 90% of field staff is all through Dad U.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So you're surrounded, like you didn't have anybody around you who was Dad U. And now, I promised you one day you would be that generation that's supporting others. And then here you are now saying, come to me if you need help. So, it's cool that it's come full circle. I appreciate your support
of course.
on the mission to 250.
We'll get it.
And I hope to be able to support you on your mission to 55 and under. So
thank you so much.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you for coming in. Appreciate you being here. Old British handshake.
Yeah, of course.
Right.
I was going to hold your elbow. Give it a proper good one.
All right. Thank you, Kurt. I appreciate it. Yeah.
All right.
We'll see.